figure out where will we get hurt the most, what are the opportunities, and then plan for it. And I think that's an excellent advice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sundar, if I may come back to you, the other elephant in the room, are we going to see an AI bubble or are we not? Right? Now, a lot of CEOs, when you look at it, talk to enterprise CEOs, they are worried about really scaling up investments because they're worried about, are they going to be able to justify the cost, what will the board say, etc., etc. Help us understand, based on your experience, based on Alphabet's experience, how should CEOs deal with this question and deal with this problem today?
You know, we live in a truly global world. I thought if I left the US, I could avoid this question. No, but look, it shows, look, I think it's an extraordinary moment. I think we are investing to meet that moment, right? I think in some other context, Demis has spoken about this as the industrial revolution, but 10 times faster and 10 times larger. And if you go back and look at the railroad investments or the national highway system in the US, I mean, these are such leveraged investments, and you know, you drive so much growth and value on top of that. I view this as a transformational moment like that. As Google, I think we are fortunate that, you know, we've been focused on this technology for over a decade, and be it search, be it YouTube, be it cloud, be it emerging businesses like Waymo or isomorphic labs, I think they're all getting better and growing based on this one technology underneath. So we can generate a return there. Just as an example, cloud alone in the last year, the backlog has doubled year on year to $240 billion. So that shows the potential for return on the other side. And so we are investing to meet that demand, and you know, that's what makes this an exciting moment. So I think the investment makes sense given the progress in the technology we are seeing and the opportunities we see on top of it.
Demis, I have to ask you the third elephant in the room, which is, what on earth is AGI? Because, you know, we keep hearing about it, and the more we hear about it, the more we feel like we're trying to build something that is going to control all of us. And then the question is, why are we building it? So what is it? Is it really the end goal to control? Is the end goal to augment prosperity? And help us understand your take on it. And also, how should India be thinking about AGI? Or if we need to prepare, what should we be doing?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that the reason I've worked my whole career on AI is because I think it could be the ultimate tool for accelerating scientific discovery and areas like medicine. So things like AlphaFold, I hope, will be the first of many advances showcasing that. And then we can apply that to help us tackle many of the challenges facing society today, from disease to climate to inequality. So I think AI on the upside, the opportunity has, and AGI in the limit has that potential. In terms of, you know, defining what AGI is, I've always defined it, have a high bar for AGI, which is a system that exhibits all the cognitive capabilities that humans have. Now, the reason that's important is the human reference point is because the brain is the only evidence we have, the only existence proof we have that general intelligence is possible. So it's kind of, we won't really know we have a fully general system unless it's able to do a lot of things that we sometimes take for granted. You know, things like creativity and long-term planning and better use of memory. And so today's systems, they're impressive, but they're not there yet, in my opinion. And I think we've still got a way to go, at least another 5-10 years to go. But certainly in the next phase, the next decade or 2 decades, I see it as the sort of ultimate enhancement tool for us and human scientists, human experts, but also the youth of today. And this is what was exciting, seeing that in India here in this visit, is we'll have access to these incredible tools. So whatever that means, you know, building businesses, creating art, I think they'll be sort of almost superpowered to do that with these access to these tools that you can access from anywhere, the most cutting-edge tools in the world from anywhere, including from India. So I think it's going to be a very exciting moment, but there are also risks too that we have to take into account. You mentioned jobs earlier, but there's also technical risks of making sure these systems stay within their guardrails and they serve our purposes and what we want as humanity. And then furthermore, the economic question of sharing the benefits that that's going to bring widely and equally to across the world. So these are all big challenges still to come. But the potential's there if we do it in the right way.
Just listening to what you said, something just struck me, which is we all talk about how AI in the world of AI, we're going to question the role of humans, and we don't know. But what you said sort of told me is that the role of humans is going to become even more important. Am I right in reading that?
I think for the next couple of decades, I think that's going to be the way. If you think about the AI systems today, they're kind of passive systems. They're impressive, but the human using it puts in the energy, puts in the question. Even in science, we have to supply the hypothesis and what the right research question is, and then these tools will help us get to those answers more quickly. So I think that's going to be the next phase of the AI development story.
James, I'll come back to you. Sundar talked about his vision of success is when the last person in the value chain is empowered. Now, in India, we have a very strong SME sector, the small, micro businesses. They're really the backbone of our economy, right? And they always are left behind when it comes to technology adoption. I'll ask you the same question. What should AI success look like, but with the SME lens? So what would your answer be?
I actually think this is one of the most exciting opportunities because I think for the longest time, most SMEs in both developed, quite frankly, any economy, have always not had the kind of capabilities and powers that large companies have. And I think this is probably the first technology that fundamentally changes that. And you could argue the internet and mobile and all of that did some of that, but this does this even more. Think about the kinds of superpowers that this technology gives to an SME. Imagine an SME, it could be a trader, it could be a retailer, it could be a small manufacturer doing kind of handcrafts and so forth. But think about the ability to be able to harness technology without having to be a technologist. Think about the small proprietor who can actually describe the technological systems that they want their small business to use and almost vibe code or describe what they want, and these systems build that. So I think the possibility for these kind of superpower capabilities being available to small businesses, I think it's going to be extraordinarily exciting. And I think the potential for that, particularly for countries like India and countries in the global south, where the SME part of the economy is actually the biggest part of the economy and touches more people, more lives. Now, one of the things that, we're hoping we can contribute to this, and we're partnering right now with the Project Vani, for example, with the Indian Institute of Science, which is how do you make these technologies more available and usable in all the languages?
I recognize a lot of friendly faces and very familiar people here, and a lot of potential new friends. We will be debriefed about Rush and the whole initiative by the two co-chairs. But I think what's important to me to convey as well, on top of Rush and this cooperation between high schools, universities, research centers, and so on, it's about exchanging more between our students. And both of you are, you had a PhD, if I understand properly. You did a PhD as well. But it's very important for us to welcome more Indian students and to have more French students coming here. We speak about 10,000 per year, more or less. It depends on the season. Sometimes people tell me it's 9,300. Sometimes my ambassador told me it's 11,000. So it should be around 10,000 per year. Okay. we decided with Prime Minister Modi to have 30,000 by 2030. It's largely feasible. Largely feasible. On the French side, we have to simplify, and we will simplify, our sourcing, and as well as a visa facility. To have a visa which, I mean, meets the expectation of the students and is appropriate. For instance, if you have a PhD, I don't know how many years it took for you, 3 years, somebody. So if I give you a visa for 1 year, I'm a little bit crazy. I create a sort of uncertainty, and probably we deliver the visa for 1 year, and you have to renew it, and so on. So it's not optimal. So on the French side, we will clearly streamline this approach in order to have something which meets the expectations and is much more practicable for the students and the schools. And by Rush, precisely, we will establish better connections in order to have a better sourcing. Because India, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, was not the #1 source of students. Let's be honest. So I want our universities and high school to do much more, but we will do as well much more in terms of administrative facilities. At the same time, I want all the Indian students to be sure that if you come to France, you have the best-in-class teaching, you have access to the research centers, and exactly the ecosystem you mentioned. With a lot of interdisciplinarity, you have, I mean, if you study in AI, you can have both, obviously, data scientists, mathematicians, you can have fundamental research with clearly the interaction with startups, but you can have as well interdisciplinarity with philosophy and other disciplines, because it's super important to have the model of AI we do believe in. And this is exactly what we have on our campus. And I want you to be sure that you can have all your different lessons, your approach, in English. Because I know that sometimes they're still exchanging with a lot of students. They say, I will not join France. I don't have a sufficient level in French language. No. You can come for a PhD, even for a master degree, and you will be teaching French, in English, sorry. Obviously, you can learn French in parallel, but you will be educated and you will have all the facilities in English. And it's very important to have that in mind, to convey to all the students here in India that we do have these facilities and this access. And my last point, because sometimes there is a source of misunderstandings, I'm making my pitch for attracting more Indian students, as you see. It's a strange argument, but in France, the cost of studies is largely less expensive than in a lot of other countries. It's not the signal, it's bad quality. I'm serious. I had a lot of students saying, okay, it's almost for zero. It should be a terrible level of quality. Because everywhere in the rest of the world, you have to pay a lot of money to have 1 year. It's our, I would say, collective choice in France. The taxpayer contributes much more than the student. It's more fair. You can have some contributions are non-French students, but it's much more limited than in the equivalent Anglo-Saxon universities. So we can ask for some fees. It depends, and I think it's good that each university and each high school has its own model and will be free to have its own model. But we are very far from the level of fees in the Anglo-Saxon universities. But just take it as a collective choice, but not the signal that there is a lower quality. It's not true at all. The government is paying for the difference. This is my clarification after several interactions with students. So I clearly invite much more Indian students to come at master or for a PhD and to share the experience you had, because I really believe that we can provide a unique experience, and you pitched France much better than I could do.
I hope some of the students sitting behind us got convinced. And thank you. We're going to count how many of you we take back in the plane. Great, thank you, Mr. President. I mean, obviously, this is the AI Impact Summit, and everything we shared is particularly true when it comes to AI. because as you rightly said, one of the reasons you came to France is because you have such an interdisciplinary approach. And when we think about AI, there's probably not single technology that is so interdisciplinary. So this week is the AI Impact Summit. And I think we had discussions here today, but all around the city about how AI is a technology that basically we only get probably once a century. That changes everything from the way we learn, from the way we get informed, from the way we cure disease. We're in one of the most prestigious hospitals here. It changes the way we interact. It changes the way we access information. And as such, it can only be dealt when we bring a lot of different stakeholders in one room. And that's what we're doing with the AI Summit we did in Paris and that India is doing now. When you're thinking about AI, and you both work in AI, and I know you have this idea in mind on where you want to bring AI. And this is something we concretely share with our Indian friends. This is too much of an important technology to just be developed in the hands of a few companies. We need to think how we develop it with public good interest. And I know you both care about this topic very much. So maybe starting with Manan, based on your work, what would be your advice to this room, scientists here, but also people from the government, people from all around the world who are gathered in Delhi, so make sure that we continue trying and pushing AI in the interest of public good, which was a key theme of our AI Paris Summit as well.
Sure. So, we can just talk endlessly about AI, but I'll focus more on, something which is relevant for this discourse. So we have to see that as AI matures, as it becomes more and more useful, it will be adopted more. It will be consumed more. And if it is being consumed more and we are really serious about its social good, then it has to become more sustainable. It has to become more energy efficient. It has to become more green. So that is something that, at least in our work, we try to closely focus on, because we work on things like next forms of computing, semiconductor devices which take less energy. So, neuromorphic computing, bio-inspired computing. The essence here is that we need to cut down the power budget or the energy budget that AI systems consume. And I think, at least in the Indo-French context, this has a lot of relevance because both countries have strong commitment to AI for the wider good and also for sustainability. And, with our French partners, we are working extensively on building low energy AI systems. The work is quite complementary, just how the cultures are complementary. They work more on new materials. We work more on building systems with those materials or algorithms with those materials, which are more energy efficient. So if you ask me to summarize, I would say that sustainable AI or getting the AI systems to be more green, more sustainable is what would make it enduring and what it would take to much larger scale of impact.
And what we can do together.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Priyanka, do you want to add up to that topic as well?
Yes, thank you for the question. And just to add to Manan, so AI for good, because AI, let's be honest, it's machine learning and among other forms of training data. And at the base, it's very, very technical. So it might actually scare people. So we need some mechanisms that, on one side, you're able to destigmatize this fear of technology and people not knowing what is behind. Even for us scientists, sometimes we're like, okay, what's behind this model? And so on the sustainability aspect, it's also, we are training large amounts of data, but is it better to focus on certain aspects? And that really depends on regulatory access to the different data sets that we have. For example, we work on flood early warning systems, and I'm heading international strategy for this company. And so when we are doing transboundary training, how do we get access to that data? Even if we cross-collaborate with research teams. So we require the help of policymakers to make sure that the access to that data is fluid, so that we have more parameters that can help us with our training.
Thank you. Manan, you're also a professor. And so one of the aspects I know you're thinking about a lot is the impact of AI on your students. Could you build a bit on that as well?
Yeah. So again, especially for academic pedagogy, it's like an inflection point with the LLMs, the GPTs, the agentic systems. It's like a never seen before situation, you know, and many things are not clear. We don't want to jump into stifling innovation before the systems mature, because we have to make sure that even the innovation is there. But you know, the way I like to look at it is not in a negative sense, but it's really a beast which needs to be tamed both by the teachers and the students, you know, for more efficiency, more productivity. At the same time, we need to protect the demographics. You know, the session before spoke about the child protection. So we need to take care of the demographics. But yeah, I mean, there are n number of things, whether, you know, students can use agents in an examination, whether teachers can design a question paper with an agentic AI, or whether you can replace the classroom teacher with an avatar of a instructor. So there are many gray areas, but we need to ride this tide, and we need to really be able to tame. Both students and the teachers need to tame this technology for the wider good. So.
Thank you. So you talked about sustainability, data access that led us to teaching, and you mentioned it, kids. In the session before with Minister Narendra, we had a great discussion on what should we do with those tools when it comes to younger generation? Because obviously the students you have in your classroom, they're probably not handling the aspects of those technology as well as younger generation, younger students, or actually not students at all, because younger and younger age, people are interacting with AI through so many different forms, but in particular with chatbots. And those chatbots, they converse, they engage with you, sometimes they get in your intimacy, and it has so much consequences on younger people. Professor Worms earlier today said, we were discussing how this can only be solved again as a global multi-stakeholder issue. And he said, that's probably a good example of sometimes with your partners, you can't rely on every definition of what's the best, but you can align and agree on what's the worst. And the worst on AI chatbots and children is probably a scenario we've already seen unfold in front of our eyes when we think of social networks. So how do we come together and address this issue before it has the impact it has had with social network? Is something we discussed earlier with the minister, to discuss about the need for global expertise, the need for standards, the need for tools, building tools also that will get this technology in a very positive way for children without harming them in a way that we can only see, you know, unfolding now in front of our eyes. So I'm glad you raised this question. We don't necessarily have all the answers, but I think seeing a global community taking that as one of the aspects we want to move forward is extremely important. And I know it's important to you, Mr. President. So maybe with all those topics, sustainability, data access, the ability to connect with education, but also to protect the younger generation, how do you think we should advance this conversation on AI and public good?
Thank you. I think the summit organized tomorrow by India is extremely important regarding all these issues. And after our action summit 1 year ago, we follow up the conversation in order to have, I mean, to try to make sure that our countries benefit from the innovation, but to make sure as well that this innovation will be at the service of our common goods and our humanity. And I think it's as important as allowing the innovation to be part of our countries. I really believe that we have the same obsession both in India and in France, I would say, and in Europe, which is that we don't want to be dependent on a totally US or a totally Chinese model, but we really believe that we need a broader one, and we want to be part of the solutions, and we want to have players being part of the solutions. So you perfectly described what is at stake. What we want to do is to make sure that we have the data centers and the computing capacities, that we train the talents in our countries, that we have all the capacities, and it's clearly about computing capacities, talents, and capital. Here are the three elements. And I mean, when I speak about computing capacities, it's about having affordable, or at least competitive, low-carbon energy in order to deliver this agenda. On this agenda, I really believe we have a lot of assets, and we are in the race. We are lagging behind both US and China, but we are in the race. Now the question is, on the downstream side, how to accelerate adoption. And you mentioned it, both of you. And adoption is critical. Why? Because it's how to make sure, sector by sector, with the right ethical approach, AI will be adopted and transform your productivity, will allow you to discover new disease, to completely change your energy model, to be much more productive. And this is one of the only way, clearly, to see the consequences of AI in the statistics, and to avoid a well-known paradox where AI can be seen as a wonderful innovation, but without a lot of impact. So adoption is absolutely critical. But when we speak about adoption, we speak about the speed, the depth of this adoption, but as well how the key players of each sector are familiar with AI in order to make it, to transform AI solutions and technological solutions at the service of their objective, and not something which will completely and just disrupt their approach. And this is exactly what we want to do, especially in the healthcare sector, and we will have the occasion a little bit later today to illustrate this